Hey everybody, this is Larry the Cable Guy. Check this out. So I'm in my truck driving with my buddy, and we was heading up to the men's warehouse to fart in the suits, and he's listening to his phone, and I said, that sounds like Hermie Sadler. He said, it is Hermie Sadler. He's got a podcast called Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I said, Sadler and the Senator? He said, yeah, that's his good buddy, Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. I said, well, what in the world? He didn't know this. I said, did you know that Hermie Sadler was voted one of the 50 best looking drivers in NASCAR? He said, I did not know that. I said, because it ain't true. You never know, though. He never takes off his helmet. But I know one thing, this show Leaning Right, Turning Left is good. So pull up a chair right there by your phone, get yourself a cold beer, and give a listen right here to this week's episode of Leaning Right, Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'll tell you what, I bet Michael Waltrip's even listening. He's always wanted to do something like that. Oh, Sadler, got another one over on Waltrip. Get her done.
And we're back. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley. Without Hermie Sadler, the co-owner of the Sadler-Stanley race team. Some people don't know that yet, but I am the co-owner. But we're here at South Boston today with the Smart Modified Tour guys, and we're going to talk to them. Stop. This is Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. Just the Senator right now. Go ahead. This is Chris Williams, Senator, owner of the series, Senator, the Smart Modified Tour.
You called me last week. We have a new voice, Bob Dillner of
Who?
Smart. Yeah. And you said, I'm the co-owner. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, it's been mentioned 12 times and my name hadn't been mentioned once. And I was like,
it was Hermie Sadler's team
and co-owner
that was running the Bobby Labonte Jonathan Cash car at last week, and he was the co-owner.
I said,
but nobody told anybody in Flow World who the co-owner might be.
I said, he's new. Just give him a second or two.
Where's Eric?
Where's Eric?
Where's Eric? Your former announcer.
I'm new too, so I'm a rookie. I got a yellow stripe on, and you know, I mean, Hermie's been my buddy for a long time, so I had to get him some plugs because he hasn't been on TV too much lately.
Oh, that is a good reason to do it. But let's introduce ourselves, starting at the end there. The man who has a cat in my house named after him, JB.
Are you trying to tell me I'm calling me something there?
I am.
That's, you can use the P word if you want.
Hey, I am what I eat. But listen, it's good to be here. We're at South Boston Speedway.
It's a family show.
I'm excited. Well, I'm talking about Chinese. They cook cats. They cook cats.
Very
what
good.
are you talking about?
No. You made it very clear now. That's right.
Yeah.
It's over.
Now, Jeff, describe yourself, what you do here in the Smart Series Tour.
What don't I do?
No, let's go back.
What
you know what you don't do? You don't bring helmets and uniforms for the ride along tonight. That I've got to go borrow helmets and uniforms. I give you one job.
The one
job.
All right, listeners, since they're not doing a good job, we got Jeff Bunton, we've got Chris Williams, and we got the co-brother of Matthew Dillner here. Jeff, tell us, try again, without interference. Tell us what you do, bud.
I am Chris's assistant, but also on race day.
You got that right.
Yeah.
You know what the abbreviation for assistant.
Assistant. Anything that bad happens, it was my fault, according to Chris.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm not taking the blame for it.
I'm his lawyer and lawyer for the series, and it's my fault too.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. So I mean, you're in the same boat. But no, race day, I pretty much coordinate most of everything: the officials, the banners, the process, the logistics, and during the race time is when I actually relax in the flag stand. That's where the best seat in the house is.
Well, and I do want to say, as we sit here and we're at South Boston Speedway getting ready for the Smart Modified Tour to come off at South Boston, my son, you are one of his heroes. And in fact, we have sets of flags. And when we're watching the NASCAR races, he gets out there and does exactly what you do in front of my big screen TV. So he admires you greatly, as many kids do. But how'd you get into to becoming a flagman?
Exactly what you just said. I was a kid in turn 1 at Orange County Speedway watching the flagman. And Dad was like, why aren't you watching the race? I was like, I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I was a big Earnhardt fan, and I wanted to be a race car driver, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. It takes a lot of money and dedication there, so I wanted to be the one to give Earnhardt the checkered. So I wanted to be a flagman. And one thing led to another. It happened to be Orange County Speedway is where my launching pad was.
How old were you?
I was 15 when I started.
Wow. 15 in the flag stand?
I was on the safety crew with my dad. He was over safety operations, and we had several officials that had to be on vacation. So the flagman at the time, Joe George, my mentor, had to be over the limited sportsman division. And they asked, well, who's going to flag? And he pointed to me. He's been watching me. And they set me up there, 15 years old, with no experience. And the rest is history.
And did you black flag anybody that night?
I did not. The next week, I did.
I bet that went over well.
That went over like fart in church. They're like, who gave that kid charge to black flag?
This is Mike. This is going to get ratings.
I'm telling you, this is going to be the biggest podcast we've had, and we've had some big ones. Next to you, JB, named after my cat, Chris Williams. Chris, introduce yourself to the audience, please.
I guess I'm the bad guy for everybody else, from JB and Bob. Everything goes wrong, I'm the one that takes the brunt of it all. But no, I'm officially the smart director, but technically I'm the owner of the series. So I guess you'd call it. I go out and do the sponsorship. I do all of the contracts. I sit with the track and create all of these opportunities for us to race in beautiful North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. And I deal with the drivers on a one-on-one basis. They chew you out every other day and then call you and apologize 2 days later.
I think I did that once.
You did that last year at Hickory. Yeah. He was mad at me for 6 months.
It wasn't
for
6
black
months.
flag. Oh yes, it was.
Speaking of black flag,
Yeah.
it was JB to black flag. Not
PS on the jump restart, and
it was not BS. It's the rule.
Totally
it's
BS.
our series. We got over this. Let's not hash this back up.
No, you're one of my very good friends, and of course, anytime you need me in my legal help or my political help, I've been there for you. And you've done a great job with the Smart Series. But this has been a dream for many modified drivers down here in the Southeast to bring back the Smart Tour. It was big for a long time, then it went basically defunct, and you brought it back.
Well, I had a lot of help, and I've said this in interviews and things of that nature. What I'm surrounded with sitting right here, but what I'm surrounded with in there is we have a passion for the modifieds. And
that's clear.
When I pay you nothing, but you show up still anyway to broadcast, to do what you do, to inspect, to race at this level, you have to have a passion for what you're doing, and it shows in everything that everybody does. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's been 3 years. People don't really realize it's been 3 years we've been doing this, and people's like, I went up to Richmond, recently, and they basically
this is a Saturday. Everybody in podcast world can know that. Our listeners can know this is a Saturday right before the South Boston race. We're sitting here on turn 1 in one of the tower suites. We're having this conversation, so it's okay. Even though the guy to your right wants to direct traffic and make it more evergreen.
Exactly.
Our people understand what's going on here, but you were up in Richmond with us last night. It got rained out. The Wheel and Modified. We had 2 of our cars in the Sadler Stanley race team. They were running Bobby Labonte and Ryan Newman. We'll see if Ryan Newman runs tonight. If his kid's race gets canceled, then he was coming back to run in that race.
Yeah.
We got Jonathan Cash here tonight with Bobby Labonte. He's going to be driving down 360 at a moderate rate of speed with some of our deputy sheriffs watching out for him.
And ain't that a good thing?
Yeah, that's right. And so, when you started the Smart Modified, and you got on Flow Racing, you did an amazing thing. You brought this announcer, Eric Brennan, who was just amazing. This guy knew how to talk about the sponsors, knew all the racers, knew what the qualifying times were actually, knew when they got in, where they posted, wasn't looking down at his race monitor all the time, and knew who the owners were, and occasionally mentioned those owners' names. But Eric Brenner is not here this year, is he?
No, he, we knew that Eric was silky smooth, and we knew the opportunity was going to come to him pretty quick. Of course, the Cars Tour kind of jumped out after him, and he took that position, and we applaud Eric for moving laterally.
You couldn't throw some bucks his way.
Well, you got to have bucks to throw.
I mean, you could have called
Junior. Got a little bit more.
I mean,
Junior
he
got
says my name.
Junior got a little bit more bucks than I got. Is what I'm trying to tell you.
That's true.
But no, we like what's going on over there with the Cars Tour, and Eric's doing extremely well. So I took the road to say, who do I want, and we had some people in mind, and we communicated.
And they didn't call back.
This is awesome.
This reminds me of when I broke into into the wrestling business. Jeff Jarrett can probably tell you.
So Bob paid me a lot of money, and got I've never been paid for them to work for me. That's I've never seen that before.
It's a reverse little Charlie Wingo thing.
I'm just So anyway, I knew Bob's background, and I knew that he had been broadcasting for quite some time.
Fresh out of
51,
prison. Right.
Prison. He still got the
ankle monitor.
Ankle monitor. And
let me give you my card there, Bob. Yeah, you'll know my name then. I should have given you the card last week. Oh, God. So to your right is our new announcer in the Smart Series. Now, listen, I've identified him as the Charles Kuralt of short track racing. I've watched Short Track Life videos on YouTube. They're compelling. He's amazing. He's silky smooth when he's not announcing a race. When he's talking about short track racing, the importance of short track racing, he's got the name of racing in his last name, Dillner. He's got the name of most people who are forbidden to enter into theaters to watch children's movies, Bob.
When you call
Bob Dillner, everybody.
Hey, before Bob speaks, you used the word short in life with me when he forgot your name last week.
That's actually true. That's actually true.
Now that y'all have formally met, Bob, tell him why you're here.
How you doing, Bob?
I love modifieds. And I like how he introduced me, too. He says, we got Matt Dillner's brother here. So he got me back because I didn't say his name last year.
No, 23 times last week he was the co-owner. He told me 52 times over the weekend.
It was 24. It's 24. Never named. And really, my 11-year-old loves to hear his last name mentioned.
Sure.
And you just
Sadler Stanley Racing. Yeah.
Say it again. Get it right.
Could you give him a shirt so he can just look down and read it upside down?
What's your size? We got this in the
there
camper.
You go.
At the RV.
Double X,
I think I got one of those for you, buddy. Are you sure it's double X? Might be a 3X.
Oh, wow. No, I'm not Matt. Anyway.
And we love Matt Dillner. Your brother is an amazing, amazing person.
Yes. And we grew up as modified people up north and went to modified races, 3-4 times a week and had a lot of fun. And, I've been away from modifieds for a while, but kept a close eye on them. Went to NASCAR route for a while and covered the Cup Series for 17 years and then went on the dirt side for the last 10.
So who did you cover Cup with?
Well, I was with TNN to start off with. Okay. Then I went over to Speed, and that's where Hermie and I, buddies. That's kind of why I need to mention his name a couple times.
Hermie Sadler.
And then obviously it turned into Fox and Fox Sports 1, and we did truck races together and Cup races and so forth. So spent that time over there, and then came on the short track side. And I owned Speed 51. I started that back in 2001 and sold that to the RTA. And they've changed it a little bit and stayed with them for a while. They have a great deal there, but I wanted to keep with my short track roots. So I went with Mav TV and did, almost 10 years with the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, off-road racing out west, the Arca Menard Series for Mav TV as their host. So I've been in the game for a long time. I remember you were talking about being 15. I was 15 when Area Auto Racing News out of Trenton, New Jersey called me and said, hey, my parents had punished me because I was awful in school. And all I could do was stay in my room and read or write. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't go out and ride my bike.
You're not good at math when it comes to qualifying either, by the way.
Yeah, race monitor's got to update a little bit quicker. But
hold on, I got to say, this is funny. So the lady there at Caraway is kind of our official score.
This is last week's race.
Yeah, but the problem was they can't be in the same booth as us.
Right.
So they have to be around the corner. So it was so great.
Dillner's out there announcing, he didn't make up anything better, and the guy just got the pole. And, it looks like as fast as lap
twice
was his first
he said, well, it looks like the same time, and it was 2/10 quicker. And she's finally, what the F is he doing? But he was looking at the monitor instead of her.
So everybody on this side of the booth, not the, we're the, the low people. Yeah. We're on this side of the booth. My brother and I are sitting together, and we're like, okay, update, and it's not updating. Right. And then all of a sudden, boom, it updated. So, hey, that's natural. You roll with the flow and you go with it.
Well, so, when you're stuck with electronics, that's what you.
Absolutely.
And that's why artificial intelligence is going to ruin us all, right?
That's right.
Well,
we're
also stuck on Wi-Fi availability.
Yeah, there was nothing.
So,
interesting conversation we had this morning.
I was working off of, because the track didn't have the Wi-Fi for us. So I was working off of actually a hotspot from some lady's phone that was, 30 feet away, she was gracious enough to give me that. So it took a little while for it to
well, you know, and you caught up eventually. I mean, everything was fine. And the great thing about Race Monitor is it's usually about 5 minutes ahead of the Flow broadcast. So we're like, he's
45
totally
seconds.
wrong, and he hadn't correct wrong, and then all of a sudden you corrected. But it was a lot of fun listening to you, and welcome aboard to the Smart Series. You've got an incredible voice, and when I first heard you, I told Chris Williams, I said, that man's made for wrestling. He needs to announce a wrestling match. But, you know, what is it going to take for you in terms of getting better, actually paying attention? What are you going to do to make sure that it's a smooth go on Flow, to say?
Well,
what do you think?
We're working with Flow and making sure that they have the cameras on the correct battles.
That's exactly.
They did a great job at Caraway, much improved over Florence.
Well, I'll tell you what you did. You admonished them on the air to get the split screen, because a lot of the great racing here in the Smart Series is not just up front, where you might have some separation between car 1 and 2 and P1 and P2, but in the mid-pack. And you made them do it, and they went to a split screen, and then they went away from it. But you were directing traffic. I really appreciate that, because that's where some of the fun racing at Caraway was last week.
Like I said, you know, I'm learning you, you're learning me, and I've been around racing.
That's right.
Listen, Mike. Anyway, listen, I've been a racing guy all my life, so this is what I love. You know, Chris talks about passion, and I've been going to racetracks since I've been in diapers. My dad was a crazy figure 8 racer. That's probably why I am the way I am, because he got hit in the X one too many times. So
you came from a racing family, you and Matt Dillner.
Yep,
of course,
absolutely.
We all know Matthew when he was on the Junior Download.
Yep.
The Dale Junior Download was a great figure, and then went off to work with Flow, and has really been bringing short track racing, dirt racing, bringing up that profile. He's done a great job. I mean, you must be kind of jealous about his success compared to your own at this point, right?
No, not really. I'm happy for him, but you know, people used to ask him that too, because obviously I came on board first and was in, you know, the NASCAR big leagues for 17 years, and you know, everybody was like, "Oh, you're Bob's brother." And now, you know, lately, you know, being that I went to the dirt scene, I'm coming back to pavement, and oh, you're Matt's brother. So
but you're much better looking. I'll give you that. You got Mama's jeans in there somewhere.
He's got the jolly.
You told me to give him the works today, so I'm giving him the business.
Holy crap!
I didn't know it was going to be that deep.
So Bob, you come from a racing family. Your dad was racing figure 8s. You know, did you get into racing? I know Matt did some racing. Did you do some racing?
Yeah, I actually did a lot more than Matt. He had trouble fitting in those Legends cars, and he couldn't,
Even at a young age.
he couldn't.
He looked 30 when he was in 5th grade.
Yeah, he couldn't fit.
Buying beer for the
It was Sasquatch.
He tried to fit in a micro sprint one time when we were up at Dundee, New York, and
That's just a bad idea.
covering. Yeah, and he couldn't fit in that.
They had to get the jaws of life to get him out.
No, he tipped the micro. Got it up on 2 wheels, I think. But no, we've been around it. But, you know, our family didn't have money, kind of like JB was saying. So I've run.
I thought he was going to say kind of like JB didn't have it. It's the truth. That's where he was going.
It's the truth. Maybe you need a little money. I guess.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
But we wanted to, but you know, I've been on cruise. I used to race about 10 races a year up until about 4 or 5 years ago. I've had a bunch of concussions because of playing ball and stuff.
That's evident. Forget the issue. We've double diagnosed this boy, right?
So my wife has said no more racing. You know, who knows? I said I'm going to be.
Occasionally you go, "Are you my wife?"
Yeah, I'm going to be the oldest rookie of the year sometime, maybe in the Smart Modified series, so I can call Chris and complain every single week like a lot of the competitors do. But no, I love
the phone today.
Yeah,
it's raining. Well, no crap.
It was blowing up when you and I were touring the track. It was blowing up.
I'm like, yeah, everything's still on. Everything's good. We even had somebody call and said, "Oh, y'all canceled." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
No, we're not canceled. I mean, you know, but that's the way it is. Everybody gets.
I was talking to sheriffs today to try to get them to make sure we get an escort of some of our haulers and some of our drivers down here, and they're like, "Well, we're worried about the civil liability. You know, if they're going high speed and somebody wrecks, you know."
And what did you say?
And I said, "I don't care."
That's not what you said.
No, I said I'd represent them.
Yes, you did.
As their lawyer. And but you know, even they were saying, "Oh, we heard it was canceled," and then I got a call. I heard it's 8:45. I mean, it's amazing the rumors that go around here with short track
bad
racing.
game of telephone in this business.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Say one thing, by the time it comes
One
back around,
person starts
total
something,
difference.
and by the time it gets to us here, it's nothing but crap.
Yeah, but we're looking right now at sunshine at South Boston Speedway, which was supposed to come out at about 12:30. It's now an hour and a half late. I've been told in the western part of the Commonwealth of Virginia, we've got nothing but sunshine right now, and we've got Bob Dillner here, who has did you practice like everybody's number? You know everybody dead to rights. You know how to pronounce
No, I
their
didn't
name?
practice. I do my homework before coming to the racetrack and
Bobby
do my sheets and stuff.
Leviante is in the lead.
Holy moly.
Hang on. He said he'd done his homework, but 3 minutes ago he said his parents, he didn't learn well in school, right?
And too many concussions. You did
Double
a real
diagnosis.
good thing here, there, Chris
Wow,
Williams.
this is brutal.
I guess this is all on me, right? Actually,
Here, it all goes back to you, Chris.
Yeah.
So-
So he might actually have to pay me this time for taking this abuse.
So you also got this thing on the internet and on social media, Short Track Life.
Yeah.
You do some vignettes, you do some recordings. After you failed to mention my name like every time, I went back and I looked through all your videos, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
And so, where can people tell us about Short Track Life and tell us where everybody can go see that, because it is such an informational output for those that love short track racing and the history of short track racing, and your delivery is really beyond the pale. It's really amazing. So
Well, thank you.
I'm actually hooked on it, and I hate to admit it to you. I hate to admit to that.
You'll
Tim.
love me after tonight, okay?
Tim Dillner, I watch all your stuff.
Listen, like I said, I wrote for Area Auto Racing News, went to Speedway scene, then went the TV route, was in TV for a long time, still doing some TV stuff, but, creating Speed 51, I remember when TNN got out of racing, and I had nothing to do, so I created Speed 51, and that became the largest pavement short track site in the country, and really enjoyed doing that, and my brother helped me, with some graphics early on, and then we brought him in, and he worked with me on Speed 51, and we had a great staff, and hell, we had 10 full-time people when we sold it, and I missed it. So when MAV TV changed their direction last year and got rid of their production of television, I was in Indy working and running that network with them and a couple other people, and I said, I'm moving back to North Carolina. So that's where my family was. I got 2 grandkids now, wanted to be closer to them. Grandkids, believe it or not. So honestly, it's one of those deals where I wanted to come back, and I've been doing dirt racing for a decade and came back to my roots, which is pavement racing, super late models, modified, you name it. So I wanted to do something different than Speed 51, and so that's why we created Short Track Life, and we want some free content for people. The subscription-based platforms are awesome, and they are the bread and butter for people in terms of watching live racing, but at the same time, people deserve some free content out there, and that's what we're doing. We got some things planned where we're going to go into shops, we're going to go find out who, is a bulldozer driver, for a living, all sorts of stuff. Maybe come up and talk to you, since you're the senator. So,
that's nice of you to know that.
You like that?
I appreciate that.
I'm smooth as well. So
You going to give us some money? There you go. Yeah.
Now you're my.
there you go.
Thank you, Chris. Chris has handed our boy Frank at least a couple $100. But and everybody, you should go to Short Track Life, and really, it is so important. I think all 3 of you would agree, not only to preserve what we have, but to also make it grow. I mean, this is the grassroots of racing. This is where it started. We're sitting in the historic South Boston Speedway. You're sitting in the flag stand tonight in one of the most historic racetracks in Virginia, but also in America. I mean, how does that make you feel there, JB?
Absolutely. When we first brought them here, it was surreal. We had a heck of a field like we do here tonight, and it was
30 cars,
star-studded.
isn't it?
Yeah, and
If I can get them down 360 with some deputies.
Tell me about it. But to drop the green and unleash that type of power here in front of a crowd that we have here every time we come here, best fans around. It's surreal. You get goosebumps. I remember coming here when the Busch Series used to come here, the Truck Series used to come here. The chills I would get from that when I was growing up, and the Smart Tour. Powered by Pace-O-Matic with the Smart Stars, bring the same.
See what he just did right there? He mentioned the sponsor. That's awesome. Thank you, JB.
It brings in the same nostalgia, I think.
Well, and think about this. Chris told me that when he started back in the Smart Tour, one of the first things he did was contact you and get you on board. And you were really one of the personalities of the Smart Tour. The drivers respect you. The fans love to watch you. My son loves to watch you, as I told you earlier. It's just an amazing thing how personalities actually do come out through the Smart Series between you, Chris, and Mark over here, Mark Dillner. I mean, what do you see? Tell me, give the listener a little bit about how this all kind of organically restarted itself in the Smart Series, a series that's one of the oldest on the East Coast for open wheel modifieds. You guys get together. You and Chris talk to us about how that all came about and the inner workings of Smart as it was reborn.
Well, JB brought a handful of cash and said nobody would hire him, and he needed a job, which is not true.
Some wrestling touch.
I was peacefully in a hammock when my phone rang. I had been away from modified racing for a few years. I worked with NASCAR Wheeling Southern Modified Series when it was going on. It actually took over the Smart Tour back in 04. I had enough. I walked away, but the big man upstairs has a plan for you, and I thought I had it planned out that I was done, and I wasn't. Got a phone call. A lot of people told Chris about, again, what drives us doing what we do is the passion. He heard a lot of passion that I brought to the table, and the rest is history. Basically, we went to Florence, that first expedition race that we had. It was 9 points. It was just testing the waters, and it was a knock out of the park. Everybody was happy to be back and everything. It was coming off of the pandemic. I don't care what anybody says, pandemic or not, this thing here was going to launch, because Chris, what he brings is a awesome platform that these guys down here, the Smart Stars, deserved over the years, and he's brought it, and he's let me do a lot of that I have learned over the past years, being in the business, also in the wrestling business that I was involved in. I brought the nostalgia that brings there, because let me tell you something, modified drivers is the best personalities in racing, period.
I gotta agree with you.
Period. I'll go up against any division out there in this country. These guys are personalities. You've got...
What did you just say? They're crazy?
They're crazy. They're all above. They're all above.
You got to be to go that fast, don't you?
I mean, look, but they, look, I say this, but they only know one speed, and that's flat out.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people have different mentalities in a race car, and I'm not saying it's in a late model or a super late model, but when you see the cars that much go faster, it doesn't matter if it's World Outlaw on dirt or whatever, those guys that are on that edge, that has that true mentality of, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win. And I'm not saying at all costs, but most of the time they gravitate towards horsepower.
Well, and not only that, though, I mean, you have in a very short time rebuilt the Smart Series. It just seemed like it was dormant but not gone.
Yeah.
And the personalities that were there before have come back. Yeah. And what I see in the crowds are, you get the biggest crowds. We've looked over these numbers, you and I both have, especially with this track and other tracks. You're the biggest draw already in these short tracks in these rural areas.
And we give back to the fans. We give back to them, whether it be on track or off track. You'll see me. I get hyped up. Again, I take the wrestling nostalgia to this level here. And during our Bell helmet stage break, you'll see me throwing shirts to the fans, getting them hyped up before we take the green. We have a thing that we do that hypes up the crowd.
Yep.
We give back and salute the fans. Our guys, our Smart Stars, before they take the green, before they get one to go, they're waving to the fans.
It's one of the most amazing things, too, and the loyalty's there as well.
I think that's what's missing, or has been missing, from the pavement side for a long time. And I helped with the Snowball Derby down in Pensacola, Florida for years, and build that event back up through Speed 51. Tim Bryant and we worked on that event for almost 20 years together.
Wow.
And it's where it's at now. Dirt has charisma. These modified racers have charisma. They are braver than any other racer out there on the pavement side. But what is missing a little bit, that Chris and JB, have been working on, that I wanted to be part of and bring a little bit of what I know from the dirt world and what I've done with events like the All-American 400 and the Snowball Derby, is bring even more of that charisma, more of that exposure, more of that hype for these drivers, these teams, the owners like you and Hermie.
Oh, thank you.
That's okay. Tell Hermie I said hello, by the way.
Hey, make it Stanley Sadler Racing when you announce it tonight. Hermie loves that.
So, I think that the biggest thing that we need to do, these guys, they go out there and do their job. We, as a series, now need to do our job to help promote them more. Yeah. Bring their exposures, more opportunities, whether it's through flow, short track life, more, series content. Content is king these days.
You're right.
And that's what we need to build up, because that's the only way. If you go to a dirt race, and I've covered the World 100, the Dirt Track World Championship down at East Bay every year, it's packed for 6 straight nights at East Bay. Packed.
Wow.
25 lap race. And guess what? It's paying 7, 10, 20, 30 grand to win. These guys want that right now, and it's going to take some time to get there, but I truly do believe what Chris, JB are doing over here and with whom they have involved. I think that this can be elevated because I love late model racing, but modified's just something special about the cars that live by the grace of God and 600
That
horsepower.
modified, I'll say it is badass. The most badass asphalt oval car there is.
Yeah. And now, I was a race fan since I was a little kid. And then Chris and I got together because as a legislator, we started what's now called the Stock Car Historic Trail in Virginia. First of its kind. We've got the Crooked Road, which celebrates bluegrass. And so I wanted to do this to kind of bind together all of our short tracks, preserve them the best that they could, because a lot of times, like South Boston and Franklin County, the rural areas and their economies and their small businesses depend on them. Plus, it felt like to me we were losing a little bit of, dance with the one that brung you. That we had corporatized NASCAR so much that we had forgotten really where it came from, its roots. And these short tracks are the roots. And that's where Hermie and I got involved. I talked to Chris one night. We talked all night. And I said, man, I'm sold. I'll come out and watch one of these races just from what he said. And I was hooked. And my family was hooked.
I remember that.
And that was in Radford.
Yep.
We went to the Motor Mile. Got an RV out there. My kids were just hooked. It was a great weekend. I got Hermie's fat ass to get into one of these modifieds. He was like, can you get a car with a bigger than a 16-inch window or 13-inch window?
We actually talked about that.
Yeah. And he said they stopped the race, the kitty litter race. That's what it was called.
Oh, yeah.
They stopped the race. Every other race car driver got out. Hermie never got out. We get to the end of the race. I said, Hermie, why didn't you get out? He said, because I didn't think I'd get back in. I didn't think I'd fit back in that thing. But he was hooked. He came out with a twinkle in his eye. He hadn't raced in a long time. And he and I have been friends for a long time. And we'd been talking about how do we get our message, with skill games, with Pace-O-Matic. But how do we really make a difference in these rural areas? And we found it right here in short track racing. You just mentioned earlier, Bob, yeah, I called you by your name.
Finally.
That you guys know, and I think you do have the blueprint on how to make this revitalization permanent and stick. Yeah. What would the two of you guys think about when you think about what is that roadmap to get to that point of success where we're filling the stands no matter what it is, where it is, when it is, in these short tracks in these rural areas?
I think it's making a turn right now as far as the attention going from, let's call it big league Sundays racing, okay? Without name dropping. Cup. It's coming back around to roots, and the attention, the nostalgia is coming back from this. And I think we stay the course and add a little bit of what you're saying in that vein. It's going to make the turn. I remember back when growing up in the 80s and the 90s, Orange County Speedway, South Boston used to go back and forth. The same group of fans, which sold out the place, used to go back and forth. You'll see a Bowman Gray type fan base at all your short tracks if we just stay the course.
I was part of the American Speed Association before it went away. Okay. And I did TV for them for, I think, 4 years. And when we came to town with ASA, no matter where it was, it could be in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, it could be in Memphis, it could be anywhere. It was like the circus is coming to town. And what I saw here coming into this show, I love the fact that, Pace-O-Matic and, had some stuff going on, and Bobby Labonte was doing some appearances and so forth. And you had things cooking in this area. That's what we need to do every single venue we go into.
Absolutely.
I mean, there is, you can write it down. There is a plan to make things work. And as long as you follow that plan that has worked historically in racing, I think we can bring that hype back. I remember being in New York. Okay. I grew up in Long Island. All right. Crazy, tough-nosed racing there. But every year we came down to Rougemont. Okay. And I would see Charlie Jerzombeck win at Rougemont, at Orange County. And it was just bad to the bone to see that Wilsburg number 5 there. Richie Evans and Fred Harback and Georgie Brunholzel, Jr., not the third. And we would come down from New York and go to those races because of the vibe that the southern area had.
Yeah.
Then, even through, what Smart did and then the NASCAR Wheeling Southern Modified Tour, I was covering it with Speed 51. And then it kind of lost a little bit through the transitions of the several different iterations, SMRS and so forth, the ASA side of things. But now, Chris, JB, they're bringing it back to the roots and connecting to the roots. There's a reason why NASCAR calls it NASCAR Roots now, okay? Because they know they got way too big for their britches.
Yeah.
And now that roots is a strong, powerful word, and that's what we need to hook on to. And that's why celebrating the 200th race today at South Boston for the Smart Modified Tour is so important.
That's amazing, too. 200th race run here at historic South Boston Speedway.
Yeah.
And you just hit the nail on the head, I think, too. Southern modified racing is different than Northern modified racing.
Absolutely.
You guys talk about that a little bit. What's the differences? I mean, the personalities are clear. I mean, every guy that I've met from the North modifieds, little bland.
Down here in the
down
South,
here, you got Burt Myers, Jason Miles.
Down here in the South,
hold on. Wait a second here.
Why don't you just adopt
We're a little rough
Southern
around the
type
edges.
of- You live in the mountains of North Carolina, for
I
God's
do
sake.
now, yes.
We're trying to help you so you don't get shot.
We know
when they
how
find
to
out
have
you're
a
from New
good
York.
time is what it is. We know how to have a good time.
That's a good
Us
start.
Southern rednecks know how to have a good time. We crack open a beer and we go out here and race.
That's right.
The beer comes after the racing. Let me, but
Do you
anyway,
want to know the biggest difference?
what's the difference?
They're way too serious up there, number one.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And there are so many more fights up there than there are down here.
Wait a minute.
Okay? And I've seen Bowman Gray.
Yeah, hang on now.
But they do a lot of that on the racetrack, honestly.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, I was at Riverhead Raceway and grew up on Long Island.
Yeah.
And when there's one crew would say, I'm going to, kill you. My buddy said, God, they're a little out of hand. I'm like, no, he means it.
Outruns.
Exactly. But I think that each has its own characteristic. I believe, even though there is a rivalry between a lot of these drivers, I think they're more charismatic. They're more fun-loving.
You
down
hit
here.
the nail on the head, Bob.
Yes.
Rivalries.
Yes.
Rivalries. That's something that we miss up in the big leagues. And
Oh, yeah.
and look, I mean, you had Earnhardt and Gordon. Really wasn't much of a rivalry, more a rivalry between the fan base.
Wonder Boy.
Sure.
But they made money off of that.
Oh, yeah.
These guys down here can
Chris
learn
Williams
from that.
made money off that.
Yes,
He was-
Chris
he
Williams.
did. And for those that listen to the Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and Senator podcast, we had probably one of our biggest podcasts was putting Chris on, talking about being the merchandise king for Earnhardt Sr. Amazing stories that he had there, and I don't think he's told them all because he wants to write a book and make a lot of money, so he doesn't have to work ever
it's
again.
coming.
But that's exactly right. I mean, corporatization of, I think, NASCAR has occurred. A lot more of flash and no grit.
It's a lot of generic drivers. It's a lot of generic personalities. You get these guys out here. I'm not telling Burt Myers to take a chair to Tim Brown's head out here on the Smart Tour. I'm not saying that.
Why not?
Well, if you're going to do it on the front stretch in
Yeah,
front of the
we'll
fence.
give you an extra $100. I'm not saying that. I'm saying be real, be raw, be passionate. We're going to show it.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to go take the man out, but I want you to race him hard. And if he races you dirty or if he races you too hard, show it.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why NASCAR got like that. And I don't want to go too far off the modifieds, but if you think about it, and I was in NASCAR from 1997 through 2014. All right. And NASCAR was climbing. Okay. When I got into it, they were climbing.
Oh, yeah.
And they were
Almost
getting there.
peaking, yeah.
And everybody was like, even I was like, I come from a fifth of a mile oval, Islip Speedway and Riverhead Raceway, a quarter mile oval. And we're, down south, everybody says rednecks. Well, we were northern rednecks. Okay. Because we went to the racetrack every week. And people used to say to me when they would go to ball games, why are you going to a race? Because it's cool. Okay. Then we get to NASCAR and we're all dressing in khakis and we have, collared shirts and we got to talk a certain way. Now these drivers have to represent their sponsors and they have to talk a certain way. So honestly, everybody's to blame for it. NASCAR, the drivers, the teams, you name it. Everybody became too polished. And because of that, I think it lost a little of its luster. And what the Smart Modifieds Tour has here is the fact that, listen, they can talk the talk and walk the walk, but they're not polished, politically correct like the folks in NASCAR. Yeah. And hey, if that works for them, and we've seen it kind of, decline a little bit lately, that's fine. Over here, these guys are real, they're raw, they're just like you and me and everybody else in that grandstand. But yet they can go out and wheel a 600 horsepower modified and do something that other people can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this special. That's the passion that drives the Smart Modified Tour powered by Pace-O-Matic.
These guys here are busting their knuckles at the local shops during the week, making money to feed their families, but also put in their racing program, and also putting on a show on the weekends. They're the weekend warriors.
Yeah.
These taxi cab late model guys that get daddy to pay for everything. God bless you if you were born in that. Good for you. My smart stars can whoop your tail. I'll put you up against
literally
any day.
Literally
any day.
Well, and because I always say when it comes to college sports and pro sports, and maybe to a lesser degree now, college kids were playing it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
They were like high school students. Most of them will not go on to the pros. Pros were trying to protect themselves, and I think you got got some of the same thing here. These are, Joe Bag of Donuts guys that are doing everything to scrape money together just to come out here and race. And maybe they get a check, but the check doesn't cover what it costs to come out here. But they're doing it because they love it. Yeah. And you can feel it. You can feel it on the track. You can feel it when you talk to them. And the way that the Smart Series also embraces the fan, allows that fan, through the pit parties and the interactions, for them to feel that passion as well.
Yeah.
And this is family here.
Yeah.
And I felt it because, like I told you, I went away for a while from modified racing, and this is what I grew up with. Every single Saturday night, sometimes Fridays, Sundays, and Wednesdays as well. Thompson, Riverside Park, Stafford, Oxford, you name it. I was going to racetracks, even outside of my home tracks. But I walked into Florence Motor Speedway when I had been out of modified racing for a decade. And I know a lot of these guys. And I watched Burt Myers when he first started when I moved down south in 97. Heck, he was in the race here at South Boston in 2001 with the Smart Modified Tour. But what I like is everybody went, Bobby, and a lot of people call me Bobby because that's what I was known as back then. Bobby, you're back with the Modifieds. And I felt like I was home again. And it was just awesome to hear that out of these competitors, and nice to have the conversations with them. I was talking to Daniel Yates and, Buzzy, the whole Buzzy family.
Yeah, Buzzy's back. Tom Buzzy's back.
It's awesome. So that's what you
And that's
love.
why we taped late, by the way, because Chris dropped me off. We toured the track today. We're looking at some business opportunities. And he stops at Tom Buzzy's trailer, and I said, well, we're going to tape it 4, and then we got it. I said, might as well make it 12:30 because I got to sit here and talk to Buzzy. But I love that guy, and that's, again, even the personalities with the owners, even the personalities with the fans, even with the personalities with the drivers, and even their pit guys. I mean, and it is like family.
Yeah.
And so you got all this personality, you got the family feel, and now we're filling the stands again. That's a great thing. Where do we go from here, Bobby?
See,
Oh,
my
you're
friend
part of the family now.
Yes, that's
You're
right.
part of the family.
I think it's a crawl, walk, run, and I think we're about to go from crawling to walking, and then eventually we're going to run. And I use that analogy a lot in anything I do, from the Snowball Derby back in the day. Hey, Tim Bryant, we got to build up this midway. We got to get stuff happen. And I think that's what we need to do here. We need to do merch. Okay,
Absolutely.
These stars, these fans need to have the ability to buy these guys T-shirts and apparel and so forth. We need a merch trailer.
Well, you see a bunch of them wearing the T-shirts that they might have bought years ago.
Yes.
They're still coming here with the modified T-shirts.
During these Pace-O-Matic pit parties, they're coming down there and getting them and purchasing them, meeting their smart stars, and it's coming. It's coming.
And I think, and Chris and I, have to talk about this. I think we need to take a few of these shows and put them on TV, not live. Post-race. Guess what? You watch it live here on Flow or in the grandstands, and on Thursday on MAV TV, you're going to be able to see it. And I think that's the next step.
idea.
And we can. I have a plan.
You can get a microphone to work.
Yeah, that's right.
Like Caraway last week, it was horrible.
that too.
Yeah, don't get me
gosh.
started.
Oh,
I
my
felt
God.
like I was, on one leg at one point just to get
I
the
thought he was
microphone
trying to
work.
get away from a fly. He's going up and down with the mic, and I'm like, what's he doing?
I love the fact that the drivers just took the mic and they were trying to find
They
the
knew.
signal.
They're used to it.
But I think those two things we need, T-shirt cannons. We need all sorts of
That's
stuff.
happening today.
When you go to Monster Jam, and I did 1 year of Monster Jam in 2015, and I learned so much by Feld Entertainment and what they did there. That is
Barnum and Bailey's up.
Yes, is connecting, basically the father and the son and the family, bringing them to the racetrack with mom and having a great time. Yes. And we got to stop worrying about sometimes, because we're such racing people, worrying about, is this going to be right for the drivers? We have to make sure the teams are taken care of, but we really need to make sure that those fans are taken care of and that they're entertained, because all these guys in the pits, they want to race, but these people in the grandstands want to be entertained.
And these short tracks aren't making money, and they're not packing the stands.
Without the
then you're
fans,
not
you
gonna
got
have the
nothing.
short track racing.
Yep.
Without the fans, you got nothing.
And so, and when you guys think about this, of course, the Smart Series as well, how do we get that younger fan here? I mean, they're looking at their phones, they're on their iPads, they're on social media. My 11-year-old, we started, of course, following the Smart Tour when he was 9. He's totally hooked. In fact, he won't race anything else on his iRacing ring except modified.
That's same here.
And he runs the
Same here.
South Boston track like he paved it himself. But how do we go and get that younger fan? Because their attention span is not what ours were. I was a gearhead. I handed Dad the wrench.
Well, you
He
got too
told me
many
what the engines
distractions
were.
now. You got the phones and the iPads now. So, I mean, it's the little things that Bob just hit the nail on the head, is the souvenir trucks, the extracurricular stuff that happens outside of the racetrack, whether it be a t-shirt cannon, whether it be we'll set up something that has a row of iRacing rigs or something. Don't put us to the test because we'll figure it out.
And something else, and listen, I started this YouTube channel, Short Track Life, and I am a long form guy, TV shows, race broadcasts for years. But then I'm like, okay, I got to get into this shorts stuff. And I think that's something, because I will tell you, and I've been editing these shorts that go on our YouTube channel, and they get more views, and they're like 15, 30 seconds a piece. They get more views than our long form stuff where we really go in depth about the Smart Modified Tour. And you know what? The demographic for those is younger.
Really?
Yes. So that's the key, I think, is understanding the full gamut. I'm talking to my son. My son, Luke, comes with me.
Sometimes you're a filmmaker. He films you as you drive and asks you questions.
Yes,
and he gives his opinion when you ask it.
That's right.
It's wonderful to see. That's the father-son thing that I think is so great about what you do.
My other son is one of the camera operators for Flow. So he's camera 2. So we brought him on to be camera 2 because he's grown up with Dad and Uncle Matt, and he knows camera 2 is your battle camera. Camera 1 is on the leader. So Blaze is up there picking the battles. Okay.
You named a kid Blaze?
I did. After awesome. Blaze Alexander, who passed away years ago. Blaze was a great friend of mine.
God rest his soul.
And when I went to his funeral, his dad said that the special thing about Blaze was that he always smiled. And I went home and I told my wife we're naming our son Blaze.
Wow.
So
that's a great story.
Yes. And that's,
I like that.
She was like, what?
Bob, I'm liking you more and more.
You're part of the family.
This is therapeutic,
Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby. Come on over to the camera and get some
Just as long as he doesn't
barbecue.
say, damn it, Bobby. We're good.
Yeah, or Robert. That's when I always knew I was in trouble. Robert Douglas Dillner Jr.
How do you think I felt when they said Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I was William Martin Stanley Jr. So
really?
I got it a lot.
There you go.
So we got the season, of course, underway. Mother Nature has not been too kind.
Oh, my gosh, no.
We used up our luck the first 2 years.
Yeah,
it was perfect.
I think Chris Williams pissed off Mother Nature somehow, and we've got to undo that bad juju. But what do you see in terms of, we're seeing 30 cars here at South Boston. We're seeing increasing car counts from last year. Everything's getting bigger. What are you seeing in this season as we look forward from this moment here in April all the way to October when we finish? What does a fan have in store?
I think we're going to see those rivalries really come about this year. And I think that's what we need to promote as a series because, Brandon Ward's got off to a pretty good start, 2 top 5 runs.
Great driver.
Absolutely. And remember, he recorded the win in the finale last year.
That's right.
So technically 2 wins in the last 3 races. Well, that's going to piss off Burt Myers. That's going to piss off, Tim Brown. Maybe, Burt Myers and Tim Brown will re-engage their rivalry. But that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that when the people come in the grandstands, they pick a side. Because if they pick a side, they're going to be passionate about it. And if they're passionate about
Just like NASCAR of old.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, think about it. Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison and Bobby Allison and then,
the fight.
Yeah, Wonder Boy, with Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt.
I just meant to rattle his cage. I didn't mean to wreck him.
Exactly. And there's a rivalry there, too, between Brandon and Burt, which escalated from Bowman Gray. But it's my job to control that and keep it in the madness control the best we can. But also make sure the fan is entertained in a safe way. And I'm going off of my wrestling history here. And I think we've got it's all about storytelling. And we've got some stories that are being molded right now. And what's so great is it's real. Yeah. It's raw.
Well, there was a reality show with Burt Myers as the central character. Now, I've never seen it, but of course I heard about it.
Yeah, the Madhouse. Madhouse.
And you used to flag for the Madhouse, but I hear that you're not flagging this year.
No, sir. I walked away to solely focus on the Smart Tour.
That's a smart decision.
Yeah, no pun intended. Right.
You want something to keep an eye on here?
Yes.
I want you to keep an eye on the kids.
God, I love your voice. You are the Charles Peralta of short track.
The kids is what's really going to come into play here in the middle part of the season. Carson Lofton, 14 years old, the son of Brian Lofton, and Carson showed his stuff at Florence.
He did.
He was off a little bit at Caraway, and I love the fact that he was all pissed off at Florence, and he was ticked off a little bit at Caraway. The kid's so, clean. He's good. People are going to root for him. The moms are going to love him. Yeah. But then you get a kid, like Riley. Yeah.
He's from Bowman Gray.
Yeah, he's from Bowman
Yeah,
Gray.
so he's gonna
How
bring,
old is he?
He's gonna
Tommy?
bring, he's 14.
Now, I have a race car driver in our stable who may be well known, and I won't say his name, but he said to me and to Chris Williams, if they're too young for me to kick their ass after they do something wrong, then I don't want to race against them.
Well, guess
I
what?
know
Carson
exactly
Lofton
who said that. Yeah.
and Riley Neal.
Carson just turned 15, but still, he's a young whippersnapper. And Riley, he's a young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
But
And remember, the Neals around Bowman Gray Stadium, let's just say there might have been a fisticuff or two or arguments
you don't want
from time to time.
You don't want to pick a fight with the Tiger. So
No.
this is his nephew. So you don't know what they bring to the table, but that's personality that we're talking about.
Exactly what you guys have been talking about.
And like he said, the young crop is coming. Caleb Hetty, he's our defending champion. He's still young.
He's very young.
Yep.
And
He's got like the mullet working now, too.
he's got personality out the wazoo.
Josh Williams, not Chris Williams' son, Josh Williams' mullet is a superior grade mullet. I mean, that's a Kentucky waterfall like I've never seen before.
The Parkett guy.
yeah.
Speaking of Kentucky, Caleb Hetty is
Caleb
from Kentucky.
Hetty.
So
Nice.
there you go.
You have got an announcer in your blood. I take everything back I said to Chris last week about you. Now, so as we kind of close out this segment, and this has been fascinating, we're going to have you on again as we go through the season, because I think it's important. We have so many listeners that listen to this. We talk about politics, wrestling, and racing.
I want to be on there with Jeff.
Well, and when Jeff comes back on, he's our boss, Double J, Jeff Jarrett.
Yes,
we
sir.
love Jeff Jarrett, Podcast Heat. He's the one that got us to do this podcast and signed us to this contract, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, we want to talk about it. We're even talking about, like, here at South Boston Speedway. How do you increase exposure? How do you raise the profile? How do you bring more people in? How do you make short tracks sustainable? And one of those things that we've been talking about is, concerts, but also wrestling.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so we would love to have that, and maybe have a comeback of your professional wrestling career at least once, perhaps here at South Boston, if things work out. We're not going to talk about what we're talking
Or
about.
Orange
but
County at
can
the
he still
Rumble
fit
in
in tights?
Rougemont.
There you go.
Rumble in Rougemont is
man.
the last race of the season for
That's
the
what I'm
title.
talking
And
about.
it's Rumble in Rougemont at Orange County Speedway. That's our last race. So
Would
I might
you get
have
back
to,
in the tights for one more go? Could we get Double J maybe be your tag partner?
if Jeff Jarrett,
Tag team?
if we can get Jeff Jarrett and myself, which he's helped me out at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, me and him can talk something out. And I think we can work on something.
Oh, man, I'm excited. Now, I'm going to work on this, Bob. You just work on getting better and finding out what car number goes to what driver and how they did in qualifying.
If not, we're going to get Double J to bring in the guitar up inside your head.
Wow.
All right?
I don't think
that would be worth it right there.
I don't think I missed a car number. I know these guys. Okay, listen.
I know you.
I missed you, and for that I'm going to be forever, apologetic.
Well,
for
if
it,
you
sort
just
of.
get to know me, you're going to know that I give
You're
everybody
part of the
shit.
family. He's done called you Bobby. So
There you go.
Bobby-
Absolutely.
Bobby,
Later
you're
tonight,
right.
it'll be, damn it, Bobby.
That's right. So now it's going to be Stanley Sadler racing.
And
There
so-
you go.
And remember, Hermie loves that. So do you see this also as a feeder series for those young drivers? Even say that the Kevin Harvick kids, the Kurt Busch kids. I mean, do you see that as perhaps what the Smart Series can provide as well?
It could be. If you look at Steve Park back in the day, his dad Bob was synonymous with modified racing in the North, and he came up through the ranks. He wound up, running for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated and doing a good job. Greg Sachs, he won.
Steve Park was a great racer.
Yes, and Greg won
unfortunate
Daytona
how
back
that-
in the day, 85 or something like that. I mean, that was for me as a Long Islander, that was like, wow, Greg Sachs, our guy did it. So I think you could see, a kid like, Carson Lofton, Riley Neal, use this as some stepping stones. I don't know if the Neals really want that, but I know Carson would love that. And he's got just about everything, the looks, the know-how, he can speak, and he's pretty damn good behind the wheel as well.
Yeah, and now we got Chris Williams back. We got to go check the dryness of the track.
Yeah, the
Chris, and
track
you brought a
wanted
guest
to.
with you.
Yeah, the track wanted to show me there's a little bit of weeper right there in 1 and 2, but it's right on the yellow line, and so they spent a little bit more time, and they just wanted to make sure I was comfortable with us going on time, but also they were going to send out their divisions first. But the track looks really good. With the wind blowing, it done extremely well. So. Yeah, I had to go do that, and then it runs into everything. Where's the transponders? Oh, well, they're in my truck. Where's such and such? Well, they're in my truck. And then it's, well, where's JB? I need a key to get the radios to hand out. I'm like, well, JB's goofing off.
Bobby, it's hard to be the poor man's Bill France. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
That's it.
Michael Gentry called me Chris France last week, and I said, yeah, but my airplane's a Tahoe.
So you brought a guest with you.
I bought the man, the myth, the legend, David Hoots.
Wow,
So
Hoots.
Last year, I'll let him, David, that there's the mic
Race
right here.
director of the Smart Series.
Well, he's more than a race director. He helps me in many ways. just not only in function but rule book. You know, we handed out the rule book here 2 weeks ago, and ironically, everybody's been waiting on it, but me and Hoots has been on it for quite some time, and he, operation wise, it's what he does, right? He does everything to the T because he learned from the best and the best, and so we've handed it out, and ironically, everybody's been bitching about it for a year and a half.
Really?
Not one word, nothing. I mean, I'm like, what is going on?
Now they got rules. So welcome to the program.
Ride
This
that
is
mule as long as you don't throw you off, okay?
welcome to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I'm Bill Stanley, Virginia State Senator. Hermie Sadler's the other half, but he's not going to get here till about 4 o'clock. So I take every opportunity that I can to get on this podcast and have these conversations because they're otherwise boring when Hermie's doing it. That's just the way Hermie is. But welcome, and I must say that Chase Brashear does an awesome impression of you as well, the manager of the South Boston
He did this
Speedway.
morning. He did a real good one.
So I know what you sound like before you even say a word. So welcome to the program, my friend.
Well, everybody tells me I have an accent, but I think everybody else has got the accent. This is the one I've got.
You're the one that speaks normally. That makes more sense.
This particular area of Virginia has several dialects, and they're all
Indeed.
beautiful. But you go across the street, you may hear another dialect.
That's true.
But it's good to be back, not only with the Modifieds. I grew up with them, lifelong fan of them, and then be back to a historical racetrack such as South Boston. It's played such a role in a lot of great motorsports, and looking forward to seeing the action that we'll have here today. It's going to be quite impressive. It's I hate to say it because I'm probably older than a lot of the drivers, but it's been over 30 years since I've been to South Boston.
Is that right?
The last time I was up here, I came up when we were working on with the Day family when they owned the track, the reconfiguration of the pit road so the Xfinity cars could run on it and expand the pit capacity. So it's quite different than what I remember, but I've seen great races up here. My wife reminded about some weather conditions that she endured up here when we came for some races, and politely excused herself out of riding up. But we're looking forward to a great modified race.
Well, here in Virginia, we have, in America we have 4 seasons, but in Virginia we have 9. So you can experience all 4 of the traditional ones in about 12 hours here in the Commonwealth.
I hear that about several Commonwealths. I mean, I don't know what it is when you put that on there, but Kentucky and Massachusetts and Virginia seem to be leading the charge with different things.
You're exactly right about that. So exactly what are you doing with the Smart Modified Tour right now? How are you helping out? How are you helping out Chris Williams and these gentlemen right here? But did you lose a bet?
I did.
Does he have some
Unfortunately,
compromising
I lost
photos?
the bet, and the first
What
thing,
is it?
the first challenge that I took with Chris was, Chris, don't come into race control with flip flops, and he's honoring that. So we've cleaned him up.
Flops.
I do like flip flops a
I
lot.
think he overdresses for a race myself, but that's where I'm from.
Listen, he's representing great companies here with the Smart Tour and Pace-O-Matic, and somebody made me a bet that said, could I clean him up? And I'm working on it. Now, with that in mind, I didn't do a very good job on my haircut, so I've got some work to do.
Well,
myself.
you're only one man, okay? Sometimes it takes a village.
It's a tall task.
It takes a
It is a
village,
tall task.
especially with Williams there. But
Other thing is just taking a look at applying some experience and taking basically the concepts that the teams wanted when they created or resurrected the Smart Tour and formalizing the rules to where they would be more manageable
Right.
and simplistic than what some other series do based on technologies and capabilities like that.
wow, that's the old head that we need here in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing about it is, I took on the role of doing it all. And they didn't want to judge, juror, and prosecutor all in the same.
It was a lot last year for you, bud.
It was. And I knew, I mean, David helped me. He laughed. We talked about it. He helped me kind of get started of doing some directing. And he said, yeah, you showed up late and you left early and you didn't ask any questions. And I said, but you taught me a lot. And I explained some of the things that he taught me. And he said, well, you did apply it. So the cool thing is, David's been in the booth with Les Richter, and he's been in the booth with, Mike Kelton. He's been in the booth with John Darby's, and I mean everybody that are, you know, not only, you know, consider some of the best and the best, but Hoots is the best of the best, right? And he taught a lot of these youngers. He taught Chase, and he taught some others, and so he's seen it all. And like we talked about when I first asked him to do it, I mean, think about it. Most of the decisions made was by fire, right? Because it was happening, and you had to make those decisions, and you learn from it. And, you know, you learn from it and had to apply them. And that's what Hoots brings to it, is he's been through it. You know, there's not too many things that he hadn't seen and done. And, you know, the old saying is you can't bullshit a bullshitter. Right. In his case, you just basically can't fly it by him if he ain't seen it before.
Well, I mean, if he's been up Hoots, if you've been up that high, you must have been convicted of a misdemeanor that carried with it a potential jail sentence, and you're doing community service to work off that jail sentence if you're down here with Chris Williams trying to straighten his ass out.
Well, what it truly means is I probably screwed up as much as he did early on.
That's a true statement.
And nobody in this job, I don't care if it's the first day or the 500th day, is perfect, because it's a very dynamic, moving thing, and you try to learn from it, and your experiences will help you more than just being a smart individual, and I'm not, but my experiences tell me, okay, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So if you have a good idea there, you can kind of plan ahead and do it that way. Again, it is a very dynamic position that you're trying to do all this, and when you put 24 to 28 modifieds on a 4/10 mile racetrack running at 100 miles an hour, they can help you find the errors in your thinking.
That's a wise statement, young man.
So it's you know, I think for the most part I've raced with these guys off and on at some of the local tracks and through the years, and have gained their confidence. Doesn't mean that we're perfect. By no means we're not. And basically, if we're doing our job, they're racing, and we shouldn't be involved.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you right now, last year, Chris and I have had a lot of conversations. And as this thing was growing and he was taking on all these roles, I think being able to step back a little bit and have somebody of your caliber, quality, and experience to take over that race director role keeps his good friends from yelling at him while he's up in the tower from downstairs in the stadium, in the stands. But I think it also, too, you know, Chris made a conscious effort to make sure that he improved tech. Make sure that he implemented rules that were specific to the series itself, and then had a race director who actually knew what he was doing.
Wait. Well, he just slapped me right there.
I'm kidding. You were doing a great job. You're just doing so much. You're from parking haulers all the way to running the race. I mean, it was amazing.
Having watched Hermie and Elliott grow up and been on the wrong side of some of my decisions with them, it's something to watch them start double clutching and explaining things in the way they explain. Yeah. Okay, now slow down and let me help me understand what you're trying to accuse me of.
It's that Emporia education they got.
Oh, well, it's I don't hold the Emporium part, but that part that the one went down there to Chapel Hill, I have some problems with that.
Me too. Oh God, the Carolina Blue bleeds in Hermie's side of the family.
Anyway, one thing that I want to say about what David brings over here, and Chris and I talked about it. He goes, "What do you think about bringing him over?" It's a great idea, because Chris, as you said, has so many different duties here. He needs to be out there, and I've told people with the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, the series director, I said, dude, you should be stepping out from the race director and instead standing there, going out through the midway, going through the pits, standing up in the tower and observing and taking notes. And I learned that honestly from Supercross and motocross. The people that are the top brass of those series, they're not running the stuff. They're looking, they're observing, and during the week, they're making the changes that need to be made to make the show better. So now that he has David over here to be able to do what he needs to from a race direction standpoint, Chris can kind of be that more of an observer to find out what needs to be better.
Well, and that has made a big difference. Even though we've only gotten a couple races off and we've been rained out a couple times, you can feel that in the organization itself.
Well, yeah, the thing that I like to apply is I'm a racer at heart first, right? right? And I'm a fan. And, we've talked about this on the Flow Network. We wanted 2 to 3 TVs and a pit reporter, which we have an opportunity that you don't know about today. You already talked to? Yeah, perfect. So we got a pit reporter today. Go, this is how this works.
Because he needs 15-minute breaks every 2 hours, okay?
Exactly.
It's just, the labor
and I'll
laws.
come up there and help you today a little bit, too. That'd be fun. But my point is I sit back and I watch every Sunday night. I watch our race 5 times. I look at different things.
I know.
Sometimes it's a ruling that we made, or something that happened that I just wanted to have a understanding. And all of our camera angles sometimes doesn't capture it. But what I do notice is I like battles. Modifieds are having passes everywhere on the racetrack, and we've kind of been missing that. And I went into the production booth at Florence, and I was like, thanks to David, doing what he does best. And I went over there, and I'm like, we need a battle cam. We need somebody to say, hey. And I asked the kid running it. I said, how many races you been to? Oh, it's my first one.
Oh,
you're producing a Flow TV, and this is your first race. This is going to be interesting.
That's why I sit next to him.
I filmed the high school prom last week. That was my first filming job.
Yeah.
Well, the roles are all different, but you have to take it in account. I still hold some responsibilities with another racing series that I'm committed to, which is the Trans Am by Pirelli series.
Oh, nice.
And so there's moving in and out, but in that case, I'm the race director, which is a different role than this quote race director, and it gives you a chance to cross-pollinate and see things from different perspectives, and been doing that now for 3 years and enjoying that. But there's opportunity that I can help Chris with what we're doing here, and use some time, and never upsets my wife when I'm gone. So, and
You've been married a long time, I see.
Oh yeah, 38 years.
She's a patient woman.
So,
But I think what you were saying is so important. He's looking at it from not just the NASCAR perspective, not just the modified perspective, but he's learning stuff from Trans Am. Each one of us bring in, a little bit of something different.
Yeah.
Off-road for me and dirt over the last several years, and just I think that helps because we all look at things from a different perspective, and those perspectives are very important when we get together during the week, when we do have those conversations. And trust me, Chris likes to be on the phone, okay, for a long time. so those conversations help him, hey, what's your opinion on this? Hey, what's your opinion? And he'll ask so many people, and then he'll take the collective thought and make a decision from it.
And that's one of the great things about Chris is he is a sponge of information, and then he makes determinations based on that. There are a lot of people that believe certain things, and their ego gets in the way of letting them bring that information in and maybe change the way they think or feel or act.
Right.
And Chris certainly has that, and that I think is one of the great parts of the personality of the Smart Tour and why it's growing and why I see a lot of growth in the future. So my last question before we go, because we've been going for an hour, but we could talk forever.
We could go forever.
But I know you're looking at radios. I know you're looking at your phone.
I'm sitting there making sure.
But I'd like to get you guys back on again.
Yeah.
But what I'm also seeing is a lot of interest. We interview a lot of NASCAR friends of Hermie Sadler's, the Kyle Pettys of the world, the Kenny Wallaces. Kenny's getting back into dirt, and he's probably having more fun than he ever had in NASCAR. We've talked to Kyle. Kyle wants to come and run in the Smart Series, so we've got 4 cars at the Sadler Stanley Racing Team, co-owned by Hermie Sadler, Bobby. And
has he said it 24 times? Because he told me he was going to get them all back, is what he told me.
but
He's the co-owner. Remember, it's Hermie and co-owner.
But what you also have is a lot of interest from the guys that have run, and a lot, and whether it's Elliott or Hermie or Ryan or Bobby, they said they just got tired of NASCAR and the hamster wheel that it was, and now they're getting back on this track in the Smart Modified Series, and they're having fun for the first time in a long time, and they're getting their passion fulfilled when it comes to racing. But I'm seeing a lot of our NASCAR legends, let's just call them that, the Ryan Newmans. He came, ran Wilkesboro, and after that, it wasn't a hard sell to say, hey, why don't you come? We'll build a second car in the Sadler Stanley Racing Team and do it. I'm seeing a lot of that, where a lot of that what really was the great parts of NASCAR in the 90s and 80s, 90s, 2000s is now coming to the Smart Modified Series Tour and the short tracks again.
Well, the NASCAR Winston Cup is the highest level of motorsports in the United States, and probably in the world.
Yeah.
The people that with F1 would disagree, but that level requires constant professionalism, focus and whatever. And when you watch a smart race, it's fun.
Yeah.
There is fun for the driver. He's not having to listen to an engineer say, do this and do that, and it doesn't matter how bad it feels. Run the car the way you want it. Help set it up. Get out there and crawl up under it. Tony Stewart has said the same thing. I want to get in there, and he participated in a couple of tests. He wants to run a modified. I think Clint Boyer would jump at it if he wasn't busy on Sunday afternoons working with Mike Joy and trying to figure out what they're doing and whatever. But there's interest there because they don't want a 10-month commitment.
Yeah.
They want to have some fun. And
come in,
they
have a
want
good
to enjoy
time,
themselves
and leave.
while they still can before, the quote DOB catches them with
Yeah.
the date of birth.
Yeah.
And that's when you have people that are having fun, it shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, I've when Bobby and I talked, we were last year when he was running for another team, we'd camp next to each other and we'd always talk. And there was one time, I think it was at Wilkes-Barre, he's like, hey, why not run for you?
Yeah, sure
I was like,
did.
yeah, whatever. I said, look, I don't make those decisions. It's Hermie. I don't even get to pick paint
Co-owner
colors.
doesn't get those.
No.
That's why I said Hermie.
It's little C in co-owner, by the way, Bobby. And little C, not the big C. I run this thing for whatever it's worth, and I really picked the wrong one to run. But and he's having a great time too.
Yeah.
But our first thing was, look, we want to compete, we want to win, but we want you to have fun. And it seems to me that Bobby's having a great time.
Everybody
and
seems-
Ryan's having a great
Yeah,
time.
they are-
and that's really what matters because it reflects that on the track.
Yeah, and look, these cars are sexy, right? We talk about it all the time. They feel the power. Of course, we've talked about it. They see everything working. You know what I'm saying? From shocks to everything else. Tire, coil bind, if they're using them or not. Torque arm right now. Torque arm. Everybody
Yeah,
talking torque
yeah,
arm,
torque
right?
arm, yeah.
But they're having fun because it's so fast. These cars are the fastest thing that was produced in NASCAR, and it doesn't matter if you're an open or if you're up north. Modifieds are fun to drive. They're sexy. They're over monstered go-kart, right?
You got some forgiveness in the front and the back with the bumpers and the Nerf bars.
Yeah, exactly. And everything happens here quick.
Yeah.
I mean, your reaction time and everything is much quicker than everywhere else, unless you're at Talladega running 200 mile an hour and it's all in slow motion because you're going to hit it no matter what, right? But they are having fun, and that's all we're trying to do is provide a platform. If you look around us, we have the legends of our time.
And Bobby.
We have announcers. We have directors.
Yes.
We have cameramen.
You have a flagman with personality.
We do have one mistake in our deal, so you got to give us one. But we all love and we've helped raise the bar of racing in some sort of what we do.
Yeah.
And we all respect that from each other because we've seen that growth. We've seen that expertise happen, and we're just bringing it all together to make a better platform for these teams and our sponsors and each other. And if we can still have a little fun, we're not making any money, none of us. Nobody. But guess what? We're enjoying what we're doing because it's our passion, and that's why we do it.
Well, you've got a car that most people can still relate to. Now, when my pickup truck stops, most important thing I have is the $5 towing insurance to tow it, because I can't work on it. I mean, I just
totally different engine than the one I was peeking in my dad's
I'm still looking
cars.
for that thing. I don't know where it's at in the truck, but it's there. But these, brute horsepower, big tires, a chopped down car that looks like they're not homemade. They've got more craftsmen in that, but brute power, wide tires. Get on it, get off of it, stop, drive under the car. That's racing. They're not as sophisticated by design. They put on great racing, and people can relate to them.
Yeah.
But these cars have evolved over times. I've been, as I told you, I've been going to modified racing since the late 70s.
They'd have Pinto bodies, actually. Ford Pinto bodies.
Absolutely. Vegas,
Vegas.
Cavaliers now, coupes back then, Chevette, you name it. But there have been a lot of evolutions that have made these cars safer, okay? Because there was a time when modified racing in the mid-'80s was dangerous, so we could talk about that another time. these cars are much safer, but they're just as bad to the bone as they've ever been. They're like 600 horsepower missiles on the racetrack,
Right.
And they're unlike any
And they
other
sound
race car
so
in
good.
America. Yes, they
It's
do.
the best engine in racing.
And bring earplugs if you're down in the corners.
That's right.
We're all old enough, and we hate to admit it. We remember when big blocks ran in these cars.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
And you would hear the brute power of a big block accelerate at Martinsville,
Yeah.
carrying that motor and that car all the way down the straightaway, and it was still pulling.
Yeah.
Well, the small block does the same thing. It's just a different combination of what it is, but that was racing.
That's why they call them ground pounders, right?
That's right.
Well, gentlemen, I know I see old Chris Williams over there itching a little bit. The sun is out here at South Boston Speedway. This has been a great conversation, and let's do it again, guys, and maybe at another race pretty soon. But we've got racing that's coming up at South Boston Speedway. The Smart Modified Tours out here, powered by Pace-O-Matic. The sponsor on our cars with Bobby Labonte and Ryan Newman, and the Sadler Stanley Racing Team, co-owned by Senator Bill Stanley and Hermie Sadler. Bobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you this.
And look, Chris gave me a lot of money to give you crap today, so it was a lot of fun for me. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Did we get a video of Chris giving out money?
I've seen it twice. I should have been taking
you've seen it
pictures.
twice today.
Oh,
He's been throwing hundies. He's been throwing hundos out to everybody, but I guess I'm too far away from your arm's reach, aren't I?
But they were low-digit serial numbers, right, with moths.
Probably right. That
Well, let me tell you
and if
something.
that's the case, then either he needs a lawyer or I need a Fifth Amendment, to not be able to testify against.
None of it's possible without Pace-O-Matic. I can promise you that.
Pace-O-Matic has been great.
The growth of our series, I can put right now on the back of Pace-O-Matic from a standpoint, and without the money, you can't make it. It just don't happen.
Well, but you guys too have raised the profile of Pace-O-Matic, and I can tell you, they do skill games here in Virginia and throughout the Commonwealth. Skill games are games that you have a chance to win based on your skill. They're not games of chance. They've really revolutionized the gaming industry, and here we're having that fight. We've got that lawsuit going on. Hermie's been at the forefront fighting for small businesses, for Pace-O-Matic, so those skill games can go into businesses, and small businesses in Virginia can actually be a part of the gaming industry, and it's not left to the monopolies out in Vegas. But this has really raised their profile. Last year was, who is Pace-O-Matic? Now everybody knows, and so I think there's been a good return on their investment as well, and it's helped us, especially because they're coming into these small communities and they're helping them. They're not just putting their names on the back of our cars and on the names their name on the front of the windshields of every car. And this series, they're involved in the community as well, and it's made a big difference. And I think they've helped you grow, but you've helped them grow as well. And I think it's been a mutually beneficial relationship. And, and Pace-O-Matic is wonderful people. They're going to come down here today. We're in the Pace-O-Matic suite in turn 1 of South Boston Speedway, getting ready to run the modifieds here in the Smart Modified Tour. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for this time. And I've never seen, old Chris Williams looks like a worm in hot ashes squirming over there. He's got his radio.
I'm ready to go, man.
He's got his headset. He's just like, I'm holding you up. But we ain't racing until 7:30.
We got a lot to do. We got practice coming up here in just a little bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another episode of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler, and not the Senator, but Bill Stanley, co-owner of Hermie Sadler's race team. Hermie's not here today, but this is a great interview. Guys, let's get you back on. Powered by Pace-O-Matic. You have a great week. We'll see you next week. God bless you all.